Good morning, guys. Charlie Wall here, coming at you on a Friday morning, I think. Yep, Friday morning. I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm not wearing my earpods anymore because every time I've worn them, it's been like, and I don't want that. So, if you're watching this later, let me know that you can hear me okay. Otherwise, I'll have to do it again. So, I don't know about you, but this weather is awful. We've had one nice day this week, and that was lovely. Good morning, Yvonne. And anyway, I wanted to talk to you about confidence because my theme for my circle community this month is around confidence. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm rerunning my First Love Yourself, my Fly program, First Love Yourself. I'm rerunning a live version of that from this Monday. And it's an 11-day program based around this theme, essentially, of not being so full of self-concern, so full of anxiety, so full of insecurity about who we are and how we show up. And I first ran this program about 3 years ago, I think, and I did it as a live then, and then subsequently I changed it to be like a self-study program, an 11-day self-study program. Now, what I'm going to be doing, there's flies everywhere today, I don't know, like, are there flies where you are? Is it just me? When I created it, I wanted it to be about people finding freedom from that self-loathing, people finding a truth in who they are and how they show up. Because when we feel insecure and when we feel stressed and when we feel full of self-loathing, when we feel unconfident, what do we tend to do? We tend to go to our habits, our compensatory habits of behavior. And so most people come into my community because they feel either they hate themselves, they're having a lot of thoughts of self-harm, suicidal ideation. They might even be self-harming. They might have a dysfunctional relationship with their body, with food, with alcohol. And so these are the main things that kind of pull people into my community. But what I've found over the years that underpins that is this general foundational sense, this core belief that I'm not good enough. And then however that shows up in the world. But also that there's something very wrong with me, with you. And that's why people come into my community. So they're full of self-loathing, they're full of anxiety. And then the way they make themselves feel better is to do some sort of habit that they then consider to be evidence that they're broken, right? So my program starts on Monday, and the reason I'm rerunning it is because it's been kind of, people can buy it and do it at any time, but there's no support there. And I'd like to really run it as a live program to really go through the modules which come with a workbook, but also to do these little videos to accompany the workbook. And I'll be doing that per module. And the reason I want to do that is so that you get a real sense, a deepening of your experiential learning about who you fundamentally are at your core, and where that kind of self-worth, self-esteem, confidence, where does that actually come from? Now, we live in a world of form, of our psychology always moving, of thoughts and feelings always moving, of experiences always moving. But none of us were born anxious. None of us were born stressed. None of us were born needing a counsellor or a therapist or a coach. None of us were born with self-loathing. And I don't know about you, but when I was little, I really remember being confident, being happy, being playful, joyful. And then all of a sudden, I remember feeling, I got taken out of the school that I was in and I was put into a different school, and I remember feeling different, and I remember feeling that the people that I went to school with before didn't like me anymore, and that suddenly I was in this other environment, and I started to interpret the world as being unsafe. And when I interpreted the world as being unsafe, I felt vulnerable, and I turned inward because I became stressed and insecure. And over the years, that sort of manifested and developed to become what I now know was chronic anxiety. I was full of self-concern, full of insecurity about who I was. So that could manifest as me having a conversation with someone and then going into my head after the conversation and going, oh my God, that person's going to think I'm a twat. They're going to think I'm whatever I've made up, right? And of course, every human's doing that. It wasn't just me. I've realized now, doing the work that I do, studying psychology, studying human nature, and being lucky enough to come across an understanding which has transformed my life, that actually your confidence was always there. And it was always underneath. It was always your foundation. It's just that you were believing stories and thoughts which were telling you something different. It's how I could, when I was an addictions counsellor at Addenbrooke's, I used to have to teach the doctors and nurses about addiction. And it was my worst fear, right? I was petrified, absolutely petrified. It didn't matter how many notes I made. I was absolutely petrified and scared. And prior to the event, I'd be on the toilet, I'd be shaking, I'd be feeling incredibly sick. And when the moment came for me to do the teaching, I couldn't do it. I spoke backwards. It was just awful. But I didn't realize that my confidence was there, and my confidence and my being was always there. It was just in those moments I was activating my stress response, so I couldn't see it. Fear was blocking me. It was separating me from my actual knowledge. Now, it's how I went from that, like teaching the doctors and nurses, being scared of it and couldn't do it and had loads of thinking about it, to then changing my career and teaching women exercise and fitness. And a lot of women, not just 2 or 3, a lot of women. Now, where did that come from? When I would have said to you, my worst fear is teaching. So how come I could, in one career, not do it, and in another career, which was essentially in the same sort of 2-year period, teach and teach very well? And the difference was, and the difference I now realise, is that I was out of my thinking mind. I was out of my insecurity. I wasn't thinking about myself all of the time, because I was more in the moment and I was teaching something I loved and I just didn't have any thinking about it. That self-loathing, that insecurity, that self-concern just wasn't there. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't get excited and nervous about doing the teaching, as I still do now. I love doing it. I still get a little bit of butterflies about doing it. I can still get a bit nervous about doing it, but I know that I'm okay because my well-being is my foundation. It is my grounding. It's because I now know that it didn't go anywhere. It was just I was thinking about myself so much, I was scaring myself so much that I was disconnected from that part of me that was always grounded and always solid. I was paying attention to the form of my thinking, which is always moving and always motioning through me. Psychology shows up, it gets brought to life, it's an energy, and then it moves on through. So that was fascinating to me. So the Fly First Love Yourself program, which I created, and this was a few years back, and I've sort of changed it and molded it over the years, is now the kind of introduction to the work that I do. And it will give you a foundation in knowing, firstly, how our habits are created from a neurological point of view, And secondly, how fundamentally what you have at your core is a strength and a grounding and a deeper sense of intuition that you just don't know you've got. So it's an 11-day program. I'd love to have you join me. I'm going to put the link in the comments. But you're closer to having less self-concern than you know. There's a wonderful quote by a man called Sydney Banks, who is whose work I base my work around. And basically he says, humility isn't thinking less of myself. It's thinking of myself less. And that, for me, when I first heard that, when I first read that, it kind of pierced my heart, because I realised that for so long I'd been thinking about myself so much, so anxious, so scared, so grief-stricken, unresolved grief, thinking about my weight, thinking about my body, thinking about food, thinking about my exercise, thinking about people, like the whole thing. Thinking about who I was as a mother, who I was as a daughter. I mean, the list was endless. That because I was constantly full of self-concern and thinking about myself, I was not seeing that if I just took myself out of that space and was here in the moment or with whomever, that's when joy appeared. That's when wisdom appears. That's when life shows itself to me, and I can see that life in others. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. If you are feeling unconfident or feeling full of self-concern, or you have experience of self-loathing, come and join us on the 11-day live running of this program. It's a little introduction. It'll be a little bit of fun. You'll have me on video. You can listen to it as a podcast. And we've got a little Facebook community as well. But you don't have to be on Facebook you don't have to be on Facebook, because it's all run on a membership portal. But we'd love to have you, and it's been great to talk to you today, as always. And if you're not in my free group on Facebook, come on in there, and I'll also link to that in the comments. Mwah. Lots of love to you. Bye.